So we're ready to start our project. I'm going to locate Visual Studio. I'm going to use my Windows 8 Start menu and start typing Visual, and I see Visual Studio 2015. I'm hoping that you've been practicing with it, because to be a good programmer, it's best if you can practice. Alright, I'm going to start a new project. We were instructed to call this project Numbers. So I'm going to click in my name field and update that name of my project. Whoops, typo, Numbers. And I'm going to check my location for my project, make sure it's being saved in the correct place. Make sure I have a Visual C# project. It's going to be a console application. All being correct, I'm going to click on OK. Create my project. As my project opens, remember I'm looking for my main module, my main method, to add my code. I'm going to click right at the opening curly bracket and enter. Now I'm going to enter a block comment. Remember, I'm going to enter a whole nice badge to tell me what's going on in this program. This program is Numbers. Please make yourself the developer. Put in whatever date is appropriate for you. Today is 1/22/2016. And then finally, the purpose of your program. This program will prompt the user for 2 numbers. And we'll say various mathematical operations will be performed on these numbers. Now, of course, you don't have to make your comments say exactly the same thing that mine do, but I do expect you to have valid comments in your code. Remember, when I close that comment block, any errors that were griping at me will go away. I kind of don't like that sticking out, but that's alright. Okay, so I'm ready to add my code. First, I need to declare some variables. Declare my input variables. I want an integer that we're going to call num1. This is going to be the integer that our user inputs for us first. So we want to make sure that we are setting this up properly. Because this is going to be a number, I'm going to prefix this variable name with a lowercase letter n. So it'll be n num1 semicolon. Now I've declared that integer, that variable. It has no default value. It's not used, that's why it has a green squiggly line underneath it. That's okay, I'm going to use it soon. I'm also going to declare my second input number and num2, close it with a semicolon, and again now I have 2 variables that are declared but not used. If your error list window is not showing up for you, go to View and choose Error List. Remember, you can drag your panes around the window to make sure that you have them where you want them. Alright, those are my 2 input variables. Now these are integer type variables. I'm going to be using those throughout the program to calculate different values for my users. Now the next thing I want to declare are my output variables. In our program, we are going to calculate the sum, the difference, and let's see what else we wanted. Go back to our description here. We want the sum, difference, product, quotient, average, and remainder. some difference in product, quotient, remainder, and average. We can handle that. We've got a lot of different variables here. Now we could declare these variables all on one line with commas in between the different variables since they're all the same data types. Notice that in our IDE, as we mouse over the keyword int, it says, hey, this is a 32-bit signed integer. Remember, an integer is a number that doesn't have a decimal place. So these data types don't allow us to have a decimal when we do our division. We'll need to keep that in mind. So I've declared my variables. I think that's about everything I need. I'm going to go ahead now and put in the code to prompt user for the numbers. So I want to do a console.writeline statement to prompt the user, and I'm going to ask them for some data. Please enter the first number. I'm going to put a colon there and a space. I don't know exactly how that's going to display to them, and I'm going to end my line with a semicolon. Now, as the user responds to our prompt, we're going to want to read in what they type on the console. And in order to do that, we're going to do another console command, the read line. So I'm going to type console.readline. And if you notice, the IntelliSense is helping me. Sure, that's what I want, read line. I pressed arrow key down to read line and press tab to drop it into the IDE. There are many ways to use IntelliSense, and we'll explore those a lot in class. Now I want to read what the user types. Notice I still have some sort of error here. Nope, I don't. I'm good. So it's going to read in what the user wrote. Reads the next line of characters from the standard input stream. Well, that's great. I wanted to read it in, but what am I going to do with it? Right now, I'm just saying to read it. I need to assign the value that I read in from that user into one of my variables. I'll put it in num1. Whenever I do this, this is a standard assignment statement. I'm saying set the value of variable num1 equal to whatever you read in from the console. Well, Visual Studio, Visual C# doesn't like that. It's complaining at me. Notice the red squiggly line giving me an error message. It says I cannot implicitly convert type string to type int. In your textbook, you saw some sections if you're reading about different data types. A string is a data type that has numbers, letters, special characters, any sort of data. An integer implies only a number. So when we do that read line, we can't be sure that we're getting only the data that we want. So we need to convert it to an integer from a string. Read line is saying, hey, I think that user could type just about anything, so I'm going to put that in a string. And I need that to be in an integer to go into my variable num1, so I have to convert it. Right here, I'm going to type the keyword convert dot. Now, I have some options here. If I start typing the word to, you can see I can convert data to several different types. I want to convert this to an integer, right? Now, how big of an integer do I want? I could have a 16-bit integer, which is very small. 16 bits doesn't hold much data, right? 2 bytes. I could have a 32-bit integer or a 64-bit integer as long as I have a 64-bit operating system. Remember, if I do choose to write my code in a 64-bit manner, I have access to much larger numbers, but I do have to be sure that I'm only running on 64-bit operating systems. I'm going to go ahead and choose a int 32. I think that's fine for all of our needs. Again, I press tab to drop that into the code. Now I need to tell the convert process what I want to convert. And what I want to convert is going to be placed within a set of parentheses. So I'm going to come here to the end and put the closing parenthesis. So I'm saying, hey, use the console to read the line, then convert it to an integer that's 32 bits long, and place that data into the variable num1. So now my variable num1 is going to end up containing the data that my user typed on the console. And we'll look at that in action when we run this program. Now I need to prompt them for the second number. So again, I'll do console Writeline, and I want to prompt, please enter the second number. And I need to end with a semicolon. And then I'm going to put the result of that into num2. I'm going to pretty much put the same code. I know I want to go to int32, and I want to read in what the user typed. Now double check your syntax here on your code. You are having a lot of syntax here in this last statement. We are doing the console.readLine. It expects an opening and closing set of parentheses after the readLine statement. It's just a requirement of that function. Now, in the console.readLine, we're reading in a string. We can't use the string, so we're going to convert it to an int32. When we do the convert.to int32 again, it expects the data to be converted to be contained within a set of parentheses. That's why we have our readline statement embedded within that set of parentheses. So in the end, we end up with 2 closing parentheses at the end. Make sure you have that formatted properly, or you'll get a syntax error from the compiler. All right, now we have our data. We're ready to do some work with it. We're going to calculate our result fields. First, we want to calculate the sum. We're going to put the sum into the variable nsum, and it's going to be calculated by taking n num1 plus n num2. So that gives us our sum. Now, how would we calculate our difference? In our instructions, it says to subtract the second number from the first number. So n difference, is that where I want to put that? I think so. Equals n num1 minus n num2. And again, mess around using the IntelliSense to help you a little bit as you type. Now, end product is going to be equal the product, the multiplication of both of those. Looks okay. It wasn't kind of sure there for a minute. And then my difference. Oops, let's see, I guess I have quotient next. Quotient is going to be n num1 divided by n num2. Now, because we're using integers, the result of our division is not going to have any decimal places. It's going to be truncated, and truncating means that all of the decimal places are just going to be cut off. There won't be any rounding occur or anything like that. Our quotient will just be the integer result of that division. Because of that, we have a special command called modulus that gives us the remainder of 2 numbers using integer division. So we're going to say n remainder equals n num1 modulus n num2. That says give me back the remainder of the process of dividing those 2 numbers. Lastly, we want the average. We could do this a couple of different ways. We could add up num1 and num2 again, and then divide them by 2, or we could just use our sum. Let's use our sum. say we've already added them up. So the average is going to be the sum divided by 2. And we know that we only had 2 numbers, so that gives us the average. Now we've got all our results calculated. Let's output our answers. So we're going to start out with the console.writeline because we want to write something out. We want to say the sum of the numbers is... Maybe we should output those numbers again first to remind the user what they input. The first number was, and then I'm going to put a space because I want a space to show up in my output message. Now, I have a string here. This string is enclosed within double quotes. I want to add more to this writeline statement. I want to add more data, and it's not part of this string. I want to add this num1 variables data. So I need to go outside of my string. So I'm going to click beyond the double quote, and I'm going to use the concatenation character, which is the same as the plus sign, and I'm going to say I want to add some more to this output, and what I want to add is num1. Now that's not enough for me. I'd like to add a little bit more, so I'm going to go ahead and put another plus sign. Nah, I guess that's enough. I changed my mind. I'm writing this program as we go. So I'm going to output, the first number was num1. Now I'll do another console writeline and say the second number was colon space, come past my double quote and add the plus sign and num2 and my statement with a semicolon. As I'm writing this code, I'm just putting things out for our user to see. Now I need to do another writeline. This time I'm going to put out a line of dashes because that was kind of our heading. Oops. Semicolon goes after the closing parenthesis, not before. Now I'm going to output all of our answers. The sum equals, and then again after the double quotes, I'm going to put the concatenation character, the plus sign, and the variable name because I want that to be its data value to be printed out. The sum equals the sum. I think I'm going to back this up a little bit. I'm going to make it hard on you. Let's count these so I write just a certain number. I'm going to back up and do just 10 so that you can do this easier in hypergrade. 10 hyphens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, 30 hyphens so that we can make it look decent. Now I'm outputting my sum. Next, I'm going to output, and of course you could copy and paste if you wanted to. I'm typing these out to show you a little bit about how to use the IntelliSense editor. I hope that's helping a little bit. I know it might just be making you wonder what I'm doing. I'm going to do n difference. Then I want to output the product equals, oh, I left the concatenation character out there, plus n difference. Now that red squiggly line should go away. In this one again, I'm going to do the plus sign, and I want n product. Close my line with a semicolon. the quotient equals the remainder equals I do a lot of copying of code because it does get kind of tedious sometimes. The remainder, and finally the average equals, and we want to add plus an average. I'm going to close that with a semicolon. Okay, we should be done. I don't see any errors. We are declaring our input, declaring our output variables, prompting our user for our numbers, calculating our results. That's our processing, right? And then outputting our answer. I'm going to go ahead and put at the very end console-read key to wait for the user to press any key so I can be sure they're done looking at the results. Let's run it. My console window comes up and says, please enter the first number. I'll make it be 4. Then please enter the second number. Okay, 3. Now, my output says the first number was 4, the second number was 3. The sum equals 7, the difference equals 1, the product equals 12, the quotient equals 1, the remainder equals 1, and the average equals 3. Remember here we've cut off our decimal places, so the average would be like 3.5, right? All right, it looks great. I think we're ready to turn it in. So I will get it set up for you in Hypergrade, and this is the output that you will need to match. So have a great day. Thanks.